All right, so everybody's doing all right today? Could I answer any questions for either of you before we get started? Okay. We're kind of getting towards the ragged end of talking about active record and talking about associations. We've gone through our one-to-one, our one-to-many, and now we're more than halfway through talking about many-to-many associations. We went through and we talked about the has and belongs to many type of many-to-many association, and then when we finished up last week, we were working on the has many through type association. You might remember with that one, basically the way the story works is that, like with any many-to-many association, we create a linking table that links the two many-to-many entities together, right? But in this particular case, when we do a has-many through type many-to-many relationship, the linking table itself is considered to be a full-fledged model. So what we did was we had the semester model, we had the course model, and we wanted to be able to associate those two, where a course could be taught during many different semesters, a semester could have many different courses taught, and the model we created to link those two I decided to call section, sort of an instance of a class or an instance of a course in a way. So the way we actually ended up setting that up in the model was in the section class, we said that a section belongs to both a course and a semester. We set up a course so that it has many sections, and then the has many through portion right here, we said that a course has many semesters through sections. So basically, weaving our way through the sections linking table, we're able to have a many-to-many association between courses and semesters. Right? Same basic thing over on the semester side. We said that a semester has many sections, and also that a semester has many courses through sections. So again, going through the sections linking table, we're able to have a many-to-many association between the semester and the course. Right? Now, I had messed up a bit last week, kind of hosed my database and my migration. So you remember I blew away the database and remigrated everything, which wasn't all that tough to do. But it did leave me with an empty database, so I had no data in it. So what I was doing was I was just starting to recreate some data just so we could play with our many-to-many relationship. So I was starting by making a couple of semesters. I created a fall 2013 semester. I've got the line there to then create a spring 2013 semester. There we go. I'm also going to create a second fall semester. This one's going to be fall again. This time I'm going to make it 2014. Right. Oops, I left out the year. There we go. So now I've got fall 2014. Okay. Let me also make a summer semester. We'll do summer 2013. There we go. I did it again. Now what did I do wrong?
Some setter.
Oh, some setter. Yeah, sure enough. There we go. Okay. So now I have 5 semesters. Oh, look, I created fall 2013 twice. Oh well, let me get rid of one of those. Okay. Let me do semester.first destroy. Yeah. Semester all. There, now I have 4 semesters. Fall, spring, and summer 2013 and fall 2014. I created them out of order on purpose because there's something I'm going to want to show you here in a little bit where we can put them back in order. Okay? Alright, I've got all those semesters created. I'd also like to have some courses. So let me say Rails is a new course. What were my attributes for course? Every course had a title. What else? I can't even remember. Oh, discipline, number, credits. Right? Apparently we don't have any validations in there because it looks like we went ahead and saved that. So we'll just go ahead and call that good enough for right now for the Rails course. Let me also go ahead and create a Ruby course. There we go. Maybe an HTML course. There. All right. Now in my courses table, I have, I already had Rails in there too. I guess I created some other data last week that I forgot about, didn't I? Yeah. This time I want to get rid of the second one. Let me do course.find ID of 2 destroy. There we go. And if I go back and look at all my courses, I've got a Rails course, a Ruby course, an HTML course. So that's all looking good. So I've got multiple semesters, I've got multiple courses, right? Next, can I associate the two of them, right? Can we get some many-to-many associations going? Let's say, for example, that we want to teach Rails in both fall and spring of 2013. Right? If I say, let's say Rails, my Rails course, dot sections. Right now it comes back with an empty array because there are currently no sections scheduled for Rails. But if I do rails.sections.build, right, then I can create a new section of Rails. I'll say this new section has a course reference number of a bunch of ones. That creates a new section for Rails. I need to save that new section, so I'm going to say rails.save. That should save all of the associated sections as well. If I now do rails.sections, yep, sure enough, there is a section of Rails. That section is currently not associated with a semester. If I, for example, go to the fall and ask what sections it has, I still get an empty array. Right? You can also see when I did rails.sections, when it listed that 111111 course, it doesn't have anything listed for the semester ID. Okay? If I wanted to take that particular section, let's call it Rails 1, right? I could say, let's say, rails.sections.first to put it into that variable. Okay? Then if I wanted to assign it to the fall semester, I could say fall sections, push into it the Rails 1 section. There we go. So that Rails 1 section is now showing up with a semester ID of 2. So they're associated with one another. So now I have that one section, that first Rails section, that belongs to the Rails course and is part of the fall semester. If I go to that Rails course and ask for the sections, I see it. If I go to the fall semester and look at the sections, I see it. So I can get to it from either side. So we definitely have that section acting as a connection between a course and a semester. Yeah, course and a semester, I said that right. Does that seem okay so far? All right, let's also put the Rails course in the spring semester. Same way, I'm going to say spring.sections, push in the Rails 1 section. Oh wait, can't have the same section on two different semesters, can I? Right. When I took that Rails 1 section and I put it into the spring, that means that it stopped being a part of the fall. If I go to the fall sections now, it's still showing it, but that's probably just because it needs to be reloaded. Okay. Let's see what we've got now. If I go to the Rails 1 section, if I call reload on it, just to make sure it's fresh, and I ask for the Rails 1 semester, it's currently part of spring. Right? If I call reload on fall and ask for the fall sections, It's got none because I just moved it to spring on accident. Wasn't thinking. Okay. If I go to the Rails course, let me reload it and make sure we're getting fresh stuff. Rails.reload. That caused quite an error. That might be because Rails is a keyword. Couldn't find course with an ID of 2. Oh, that's the one I deleted. All right. Let me go to the courses. It's actually the ID of 1 I want. Rails should be course with an ID of 1. There we go. Well, it's definitely reloaded now, isn't it? Okay. If I go to that and I ask what sections there are of it, it says there currently aren't any. I think I've gotten things off here a bit, don't you? My Rails 1 section says it's part of course ID 2, and that should be that Rails course. Oh, no, 2 was the one that I deleted, so that should be a part of 1. So basically I have a section there that has an invalid course ID. So let's say the Rails course, its sections, let's push into it that Rails 1 section. So now that Rails 1 section belongs to a valid course, the actual one. Am I completely losing you with all my goof ups? Yeah. So my Rails course, if I reload it just to be sure, my Rails course, if I ask what sections there are of it, there's 1. My Rails 1 section, okay, I'm going to reload it just to be sure. And for the Rails 1 section, if I ask what course it belongs to, I get back the Rails course properly. So that side of the relationship seems to be okay now. I can get to it from either side. Okay. How about the semester side? If I go to, did I put that course back in fall or is it still in spring? Let's reload spring. If I say spring, what sections do you have? There's that one section. And if I go to my section, Rails 1, and I ask what semester it belongs to, I get back spring. So that side of the relationship seems to be okay. All right, so that section is where it's supposed to be linking spring 2013 and the Rails course. Let's make another one now. Rails 2 is going to be a new section. Maybe this time to create it, what I want to do is I want to go to a semester. So I'll say fall.sections.build. And I'll say the course reference number for this new section is a bunch of 2s. So the Rails number 2 section. That creates a new section, but you see in this particular case that section is not associated with a course. Right? Let me go ahead and save it. I'm going to do that just by saving the fall, which should cascade through and also save that section. If I look at Rails 2, yeah, it's got an ID created at and updated at, so it has been saved now. Okay. Now if I want to take that Rails 2 section and assign it to the Rails course, right, I can go to my Rails course and push into its list of sections the Rails number 2 section. There. Okay. Do you have questions? So what do I have now? The Rails course has 2 different sections. Okay. The first of those sections, if I ask for its semester, is in spring. If I go to the Rails course, look at the sections, the last section, and ask for its semester, it's in fall. Right. So from course to semester, we have one course being associated with many semesters through sections, right? Right. That also means that I should be able to go to a course like Rails, and I should be able to say what semesters are you being taught, and sure enough, it understands that. So without me ever actually touching the sections specifically, the linking table, just going straight from the course to the semester, it was able to link through the linking table sections and figure out which semesters the Rails course is being taught, fall and spring. Okay. What about going the other direction? Right now, each of our semesters only has one course in it. So let's set up the Ruby class so it's being taught in, say, the spring and the summer. Right? So I need a new Ruby section. So I'm going to make a new Ruby section called Ruby 1. Let me create it by going to a semester. Let me do spring. Spring.sections.build. So build a new section to go to spring. Spring, not sprint. I'll say this new section has a course reference number of a bunch of 3s. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and save the spring semester so that that section gets saved. Let me then go to the Ruby course and push into its list of sections that new Ruby section. So it understands that not only is it linked with semester 3, spring, but it'll also be associated with course Ruby. There we go. Right. Let's make another section of Ruby. I'll call this one Ruby 2. This time maybe I'll create it through the course. So I'll go to the Ruby course, in its list of sections, build a new section, course reference number of a bunch of 4s. If I go to the Ruby course and save, that'll save the section as well. And if I then go to the summer semester, ask for a list of its sections, and push into it the Ruby 2 section, I think we got it. It's kind of twisty, isn't it? Lots of connections here and there. So what do we have? If we go to the spring semester and we ask what sections are taught in spring, there's 2 of them. If we go to the spring semester and ask what courses are being taught, I can see that those 2 are Rails and Ruby. So from the semester side of the relationship, I can see that there are 2 different sections of 2 different courses being taught. If I go over to the course side, say go to the Ruby class, and ask what sections there are, I see that there are 2 different sections of Ruby being taught. Right? From the Ruby course, if I ask what semesters it's being taught, I can see they're being taught in the spring and the summer. So we definitely have many-to-many. Right? We've got Rails being taught in the fall and the spring. We've got Ruby being taught in the spring and the summer. So many courses being taught, many semesters. I think that's that. Didn't get a chance to try that out a little bit last week, right? But there we go. It looks like our has many through relationship is working just fine. Probably completely unintelligible, wasn't it? Draw a picture. Draw out your tables and draw lines between the records. It makes it make a lot more sense. That's exactly what's going on in my head, picturing these tables with the lines going back and forth. Yeah. Lots of neat things we can do then. Right? We could start with a semester, spring. We could go to its list of sections. Each section is associated with a course. So if I say the first section, go to its course and get its title. Right? So basically I'm asking for the title of the course of the first section of spring. I get back Rails. If I go to Rails, the course, and I say go to the last section, right? What is the season of the semester that the last section of Rails is being taught? Oops, that should have been sections. There we go, fall. Right. So the last Rails section that was added in the fall. Yeah. Good stuff. That's pretty much the foundation of all of the association work in Rails. One-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, potentially two different ways. Right? Just about any kind of data hierarchy you might want to create, you can probably put together pretty well with those three basic types of associations. There were really, if you think about it, only three methods that we used. We used the has-one method for the one-to-one relationship, and then for the one-to-many and many-to-many relationships, we pretty much used the belongs to and has many methods. There was also that one has many and belongs to method. But like I think I told you when we were talking about it, I'm pretty sure that one is disappearing, and it's not really considered to be a great practice to use it nowadays. It exists for the moment, but probably won't really consider it much in the future. Okay. All right, so with all that down, okay, one of the things that we talked about when we first got into this is the fact that Rails likes to do things the Rails way. There are lots of assumptions that are made in the way all of this stuff is set up that allows it to work so seamlessly with so little effort on our part. Some of those things are the fact that every record has an ID column called ID, has a primary key called ID. Right? Foreign key fields always have the name of the foreign table, singular, followed by underscore ID. Right? So semester ID, course ID, things like that. What happens if you find yourself in a situation where you are having to deal with what is usually called a legacy database? Say, for example, your database already exists and you're writing a new Rails app that you want to be able to access that pre-existing database. Well, that pre-existing database, the chances that they just happen to do things the Rails way is pretty small, right? Not very likely that they just happen to follow all of the Rails conventions. And it is then thankfully possible that Rails is flexible enough, Active Record is flexible enough, that things don't have to be set up exactly the way that they normally would be if we were creating a new database. Right? In situations where we need to sort of be able to customize our relationships, that usually happens through modifications we can make to the has-many method. Okay? With has-many, typically we say has-many and then we just give the name of the thing that we has-many of. Bad English, I know, but kind of makes sense. Right? So here we would usually have some table name. Right? There are extra things that can be added onto here, extra attributes that can be specified that allow you to sort of modify a bit the way that Active Record is going to interpret this. Usually with has-many, your table name there is going to be pluralized, and as a result what it's going to end up doing is looking for that table name in a singular form. So like up here with courses, it actually looked for a table in the database just called course. Oh, I'm sorry, actually no, the database table is plural too. So it looks for a table named exactly this, courses. Right? So in this case it would look for a table called table names. Okay? Well, what happens if our table isn't called table name? Or what if our model isn't called table names? Well, there's another attribute we can put on here called class name, where we can tell it exactly what the class name really is. Real class name, I'll say. Hmm? Same sort of thing can happen with foreign keys. What happens if the foreign key is not named according to the Rails convention? Well, we can put in a foreign key attribute, right? And tell it the real foreign key name. Right? So there are these extra little bits that we can throw onto has-many especially in situations where we need Active Record to be able to utilize a database that maybe doesn't do things the way that is typically expected, doesn't follow the Rails convention. Okay. It also, though, lets us go off the path and do some sort of weird and wild kind of things, slightly different, right, than we normally would do. Right? Like over here with courses, for example. What if, let me see, what did we have? How was sections set up? There are sections, you see, we put in a field called meets at. What if there were actually different types of sections? What if, for example, we had online sections? And online sections, the thing that made them special was that they didn't have any value for meets at, because an online section sort of meets all the time or none of the time, however you want to look at it. Right? What we could do is we could actually sort of flub there being a real database table specifically for online sections. We could do things like say that a course has many online sections, right? Which means that Rails would then go and look in the database and expect there to be a table called online sections. Right? But we don't actually have a table called online sections. An online section is really just a special type of regular section, a section that doesn't have any value for meets at. Okay? Well, what we could do is we could fix that so it still works by specifying a special class name. We could say the actual class name that goes with this is section. Right? So then Active Record's going to know, don't look for a table called online sections. Look for a table just regularly called sections. Okay. We could even do things like put in special conditions. Can we still do conditions, or does it have to be where? Let's try this and see if it works. Let's say where conditions meets at is nil. Let me give that a try. I'm going to jump back over to the terminal and I'm going to reload the console. There we go. If I then go to my courses and I ask for online sections, didn't like that. Did I spell everything right? Course, online sections. Undefined method, online sections. That's interesting. Hadn't played with this in a while. I wonder what the trick is. I think I did that right compared to the way it used to be done.
Would you go through and make the model for online sections first?
The whole trick is we don't want there to be a separate model. Yeah, we just want online sections to be recognized as a special sort of subcategory of regular sections where meets at is nil. I wonder if maybe we can't do it this way anymore. Rails changes so fast. I'm never surprised when something that I did at one point that worked all of a sudden has stopped working. When do I think?
I think it's even right too.
I can't remember the last prediction I heard. I remember everybody was talking a lot about February, but I can't remember if that was for Rails 4 or if that was for Ruby 2. Both of them are due out this year, but I can't remember specifically when. All right, well, maybe we should forget about this a little bit. I'll have to go do a little research and see if I can figure out why that doesn't work. I'm just going to comment that out for the moment. Okay. And I won't worry too much about it. Right? Eventually what I was going to do is I was going to get rid of that particular way of doing it anyway in favor of something a little bit more robust. Right? Let's see if some of these other little tricks still work. Remember I created my semesters out of order? I specifically put fall 2014 before summer 2013 so they wouldn't be in order. What if I always wanted my semesters to come back in order? Well, if I go over to my semester class, whenever I talk about, let's say, through courses, Actually, let's go to courses. Let's do it from there. From courses, courses has many sections, has many semesters through sections. If I wanted those semesters to always come back in order, I should be able to add that. Now I'm checking my notes because I'm paranoid that I've forgotten something else. Where did I skip order? I don't know. Let's try order. What is the syntax for this? Oh, there it is. What if we just said order season and year? Yeah, I set this up poorly. If we go to a course, let me grab one particular course. Let's say Rails course.first. There we go. So I have one particular course. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it does. I haven't reloaded my console yet, so what we should be seeing now is the normal working. If I ask what semesters Rails is being taught in, we get fall and spring, which unfortunately are already in order. I wish those were out of order. Instead of creating the semesters out of order, what I should have done is added sections out of order. Wait, I did add something out of order, didn't I? Which course was it that I added out of order? I put one section in the wrong place. Okay, I think that's good for today. My brain's not working, apparently. Let's see. Rails.sections. That's it. The sections of Rails. The first section is in semester 3. The second one is in semester 2. So I assigned those out of order, but that's not specifically what I wanted to do. Let's just go ahead and reload this and make sure that I'm not going to get an error from that order anyway. Rails is course first. There we go. If I go to Rails and I ask for semesters, they do come back in order as they should be. If I had added those out of order, if those had been created out of order one way or another, putting that order clause in with the has many should have put them in order. And for some reason my brain is not wrapping itself around what I need to do to demonstrate that properly. Let me add, let's see, fall 2013 is already my first semester. Maybe I should go back and add an earlier semester. Let's try that. Let's say a semester called last summer. Semester create, season summer, year 2012. So I've got last summer as a semester now. Okay. If I make a new section, let's say the Rails 3 section, let me go to the Rails course. In its sections, I'm going to build a new section. What number was I up to? 5s? I'll build a new section of Rails. There we go. In the Rails course, let me go ahead and save. Alright. Then last summer's sections, let me push in the Rails 3 section. Alright. So now in Rails, I have a section from this fall, this spring, and then I added one that goes all the way back to last summer. So they were created out of order. Without that order clause in there, what should then show up if I go to the Rails course and ask what semesters it's being taught is it should have summer listed last because it was the last one added. But if I go to the Rails course and I ask about semesters, let me reload the course. It's not showing summer at all. It is showing up last. Should they be going the other way? Let's see. How do I put descending in here? Or ascending? Season year. Is it ASC? I think it's DESC I want. Rails course is the first course. Rails semesters. Same order it was in before. Let's try ascending. Reload. Grab the Rails course again. Look at the semesters. Is that the same? Fall, spring, summer? Fall, spring, summer. Looks like it is. Going from the course, looking at semesters. I'm telling it to put them in order, but it doesn't seem to be having any effect. Strangely enough. Boy, I'm batting 0 today. Not getting an error this time, but for some reason that doesn't seem to be having any effect. All right. Getting upset now. Semester has many courses through sections. If I go to a semester, let's work with this current fall semester, fall 2013. I'm going to say fall semester first. All right, so I've got this fall semester. If I ask for the courses that are being taught, only Rails. Is that right? I thought we had 2 in the fall. I guess we had 2 in the spring, didn't we? Let me get spring instead. I don't remember the ID. Do you? Let's get spring, semester 3, ID 3. Gotta spell semester right. There we go. Alright, spring's courses. Courses with an S. We've got Rails and Ruby. Anything good there we could put them in order by? What if Ruby had a number that was less than Rails's number? Let's say Ruby equals, actually let's figure out which one Ruby is. Course all, Ruby is course ID 3. So Ruby equals course find 3. Ruby.number. Actually, let's just do Ruby update attributes. Let's update the number attribute, and let's set it to 2763. There we go. Reload the spring semester. Go to the spring semester, ask about its courses. Now Ruby has a number, 2763. So when I'm looking at a semester at courses, right now the numbers are being shown from greatest to least. Let's see if we can affect that order. So in the semester model, where we have many courses, can we change that order by ordering them by the course's number? I don't know. Let's see. Reload. What semester was spring again? Uh-oh. Looks like I've introduced some other problem. Missing a curly brace? Oh, yeah, we don't need the curly braces here. Let's try it again. Semester all, spring is semester 3. There we go. If I go to spring and I ask for the courses, there. See, they're opposite than what they were before. Before they were coming out greatest to least, and now they're coming out least to greatest. So now whenever I go to a semester and I ask for the courses, it's putting the courses specifically in order by their numbers. So that does work. Anything that I did a few minutes ago that made it look like it didn't work is my fault because I'm just not thinking through this right. So there we go. That seemed to do the trick. Okay. All right. So order is one of the modifications we can make to a has-many relationship. So whenever we go through that pipe, through that relationship to get at something on the other side, we can affect how it comes through, like the order that it shows up in. Okay. What if we had multiple instances of the same course being taught the same semester? I've already got the spring semester here. In spring, we're doing one Ruby, one Rails right now. What if we added another Ruby course, or another Rails course, let's say, to the spring semester? So if I say spring sections build, I want to make another Rails course. I'll call it just Rails 2. Course reference number of a bunch of 6s. There we go. Save the spring semester and its associated sections. Okay. I want to make sure that Rails 2 shows up as a Ruby course. So do I still have my Ruby course there? I do. So Ruby push into its sections. Oh, not Ruby, it's Rails. Do I have the Rails course loaded? Yeah, I do. So for the Rails course, push into its list of associated sections that Rails 2 section that I just made. Looks like it's showing up twice. Needs to be reloaded. See, look, ID 6 is showing up in there 2 times. They look like they're exact duplicates. Probably just needs a good reload. Because that shouldn't be possible. 2 records with the same ID shouldn't be possible. Okay. Let's see, if I go to the spring semester now and ask about courses, I don't see the other one. Let's reload the spring semester and ask about the courses again. That's what I was looking for. Okay. If I go to the spring semester and I ask it about courses, there's 2 Rails courses and 1 Ruby course being taught. Okay. In a way, that kind of makes sense. When I go to spring and I ask about sections, it should show 3 separate sections being taught, right? The thing is that 2 of those sections, sections 1 and 6, are both Rails courses. You with me? Okay. When I go to spring and I ask about courses that are being taught, it says Ruby's being taught, Rails is being taught, and Rails is being taught, which is kind of redundant in a way. Yeah, we know that Rails is being taught in the spring. There are 2 Rails courses, 2 Rails sections, I should say. Right? But when I ask specifically about the courses that are being taught, it's kind of redundant to actually say that Rails is being taught twice. If we want to know how many specific times it's being taught, we look at the sections. If we just want to know what courses are being taught that semester, right, I would expect the list to only have unique entries in it. Right? And we should be able to do that. Right? Again, back in the model, when we go to the semester and we're describing how courses are seen when looked from the semester side, right, there's an option we can put in, unique, IQ. I believe we can say unique true. UNIQ. True. Yeah, I think that's it. So right now when I go to Spring and I ask about courses, Rails shows up twice. If I put in unique, reload my console, get that Spring semester back, got to spell semester right. There we go. If I go to Spring and I ask what sections, I can see that there's 1, 3, and 6. 1 and 3 are both the same course ID there. So those are both the Rails courses. If I go to Spring and I ask about the courses now, though, Rails only shows up once because of that unique attribute that I put in. It's a tiny little thing, but man, it takes a lot of work to demonstrate it. Maybe I should just describe. We'll make this theater of the mind. No more actual demonstrations. I'll just tell you about it. Yeah, actually, that doesn't sound like much fun, does it? All right. I think I've got one more little thing here, one more little modification to make. And overall, to be honest, this is probably the one that you'll end up using the most often. Okay. It has to do with deleting, with destroying values. Right? When we start working with associations, there are going to be times when destroying one of the records that's a part of an association should have an effect on other parts of the association, and there should be times when it shouldn't. For example, when I destroy a semester, if I delete a semester, what should happen to the sections that are being taught that semester? Should the sections also be destroyed? Because that's the semester they were being taught in is no longer going to be in existence? Or should the sections be left in existence but just have their semester ID set to nil, for example? So essentially we have sections that belong to a course but are never actually being taught in during any time period. Right? Or think about the tutorial and steps example that we did a week or two ago. If I delete a tutorial, what should happen to all the steps of that tutorial? Right? By default, what happens is nothing. So with tutorials and steps right now, if I delete a tutorial, right, we end up with all these steps sitting out there that think they're associated with the tutorial, but since I deleted that tutorial no longer actually exists. Right? So sometimes it might be appropriate to leave something. Like if I delete a semester, I wouldn't want to have all my courses removed from the database. The courses exist independently of semesters. Right? But other times, like with tutorials and steps, we do want there to be sort of a cascading delete that occurs when we remove certain things. If I delete a tutorial, it's because I don't want that tutorial or any of the steps that are a part of it. That's why I'm deleting it. Okay? We can control all of that through these same sort of modifications we're making to the has many method. Right? Basically, there's options we can put in, an option we can put in called dependent, where we can state how dependent a record is or an association is to the model. Right? We can say that it's dependent, so it should be destroyed. So basically, like in the case of tutorials and steps. Okay? Let me come back over to tutorial model. And let me say a tutorial has many steps. And I'll say that steps are dependent. So whenever a tutorial is deleted, we should also destroy the associated steps.
That's it.
Yeah. I know it's a tiny little thing to type. But now what's it going to take for me to be able to demonstrate it? I have to go make a tutorial with 20 steps in it? That's kind of the fun part, the funny part.
Steps.
Yeah, we could just make a tutorial with one step. We could delete the tutorial and see if the step goes away too, basically. Okay? Let's go just see if that works. Let me go ahead and reload my console. Okay? I don't believe I have any tutorials right now. Yeah, I never rebuilt any of that after I blew away my database. So no tutorials, no steps. They're both empty. Okay? So let me make a new tutorial. I'll just call it T1. I'll say tutorial create. I think tutorials had a title, right? I'll just call it the test 1 tutorial. There we go. To my test 1 tutorial then, I'm going to go to its steps and I'm going to build a new step. And I'll say this new step has a title of step 1. Okay. If I go to T1 and hit save the tutorial, what I have now is I have tutorial 1, T1, and it has in its steps, step 1. Okay. So I have a tutorial with 1 step in it. If I now do T1.destroy, okay, if you look at the SQL that actually executed there, you can see that it started in this case by deleting all the steps. And then once all the steps were destroyed that belonged to that tutorial, it then went back and destroyed the tutorial itself. So if I look at all my tutorials, there are none. And if I look at all my steps, there are none. So deleting the tutorial had the side effect of also deleting the steps that were a part of that tutorial because of this dependent destroy option that we put in. Okay. The different things you can put in with dependent is you can put in destroy. Right? It basically destroys the same way that things would be destroyed if we called the destroy method on them. Right? But you could also put the word delete there. If you put the word delete there instead of destroy, what happens is it basically does a database level delete. Instead of sort of going through the normal active record procedure of deleting something, including calling all the callbacks, it instead just goes straight to the database and wipes out everything of that type. Right? The delete option is technically more efficient. It happens faster. But if you had any destroy callbacks set up, they would be skipped if you did delete instead of destroy. The other big option you could put in there instead is you could put in nullify, right? Which, considering Ruby, should really be called nillify, but they didn't. They called it nullify. Right? If you put in nullify, what happens is those dependent associated objects won't be destroyed, but instead the value of their foreign key field will be set to null. So they are not referring to a model that no longer exists. It leaves them in a slightly more valid state than if we did absolutely nothing with them at all. Okay? Okay. Wow. Wish I could figure out why this wasn't working. What I wanted to do next was something else that was similar to that. Online sections for a course. Undefined method online sections. Different error. Unknown key where? Oh, it's because it shouldn't have been a key, should it? Should have been a method. Sure seems to be going that far into it, doesn't it? Unexpected new line? Seriously. Huh. I don't know. Let's try something else anyway. Even though I can't get that to work. Let's go try something else in that general area and see if I have an equal amount of lack of success. The next thing I wanted to tell you about is recursive relationships, also called self-referential joins. Kind of a little database trick you can do that occasionally could come in handy for this or that. Say, for example, you wanted to create a database where you could store relationships between people. Very social media, you know. How would you do something like that, database-wise? I could have a database table with people listed in it, right? But then how do I associate those people with other people? Do I create a second table, call it, people 2, so that I can have one-to-many relationships between the people in table 1 and the people in table 2? And what happens if the people in table 2 have relationships with other people? Do I create another table called people 3? What happens if I have the same person who's in multiple tables? Right? It starts to get to be kind of a mess. Generally, if I did want to set up that kind of relationship, I would want to do it as a recursive relationship. Basically, instead of having the associations connect 2 different tables, one table to another table, what I'd want to be able to do is have a table connect to itself. So essentially, instead of having one table connect to another, where the first table has a primary key and the second table has a foreign key, what I would do is just have one table that has both a primary key and a foreign key, so that a record in that one table could then associate with another record in that one table. Right? By doing that, you can basically create sort of an infinite hierarchy, right? Where one record relates to another in the same table, relates to another in the same table, relates to another in the same table. Could even potentially loop back on itself. Right? Let's see if we can do this. Let me get out of the console for a minute. Let's make a lot of times where I run into this is when I want to categorize things. Want to make categories. Well, when you want to categorize things, when you want to have categories, a lot of times just one level of categories isn't enough. You want to be able to have subcategories and sub-subcategories and who knows how many levels of categories, right? Well, same problem as with people, right? Essentially what I would probably need to do if I wanted to be able to have categories with subcategories and on, is I would just need one category table, but I would then need to set that table up so that it could be self-referential. So one category in that table could then link to another category in the subtable as being a subcategory. Essentially would be the idea. Right? So let's make a category table. Rails G model category. Okay. Let me say that every category has a name, which is a string. But I'm also then going to say that every category has a parent category, which I'm going to set as an integer. Essentially what that parent category is going to be is the foreign key. Right? So that a category can then refer to another category. If I have category 1 that's associated with category 2 could have 1 listed as its parent category. That's the self-referential bit. Go ahead and hit enter. Okay. Something really cool here. Do you see the name of the migration it created? Create categories. Isn't that great? It properly pluralized categories without me having to tell it. Oh, I love that. I think that's great. All right, let me migrate the database. RakeDB migrate. There we go. All right. Now what we should be able to do here, if I can get it to work, is over here in our category model, what we basically want to do is we want to create a one-to-many relationship like we did with steps and tutorials, for example. Except what would be different here is that this would be a category having a one-to-many relationship with other categories, self-referential. So we would need to put in the belongs to and the has many all right here in the category table. So let's say that a category belongs to a parent category. And let's also say that a category has many subcategories. Now, in order for that to work, we'll have to make some modifications here. Because if we leave it like this, Active Record is going to look for tables called parent category and subcategories, which don't exist. Instead, all of this should be driven out of just the category table that we've already created. Did I spell everything right? Category is looking really weird. Category? Category? Okay. Anyway, with the belongs to part, we should be able to say the actual class name is category. Right? So basically telling it don't look for a table called parent category, look for a class name just category. And we should be able to tell it that the foreign key that it's going to use for this is called parent category. Down on the has many part, same basic idea. When we're going through subcategories, don't actually look for a table called subcategory, instead look for a class name category. And again, going through the foreign key, parent category. So the same thing for both of them, just kind of letting Rails know how it is that we have set up that particular table. Let's see what happens. If I go back over into my console, if I ask about category, it knows what I'm talking about. Category class is there. If I go to the category class and I ask about subcategories, same thing I was getting before, undefined method subcategories. If I ask about parent category, undefined method. So it's not getting those two. Not letting me create a custom association the way that I would expect. I wonder what's changed. Let's go ask Google. Rails 3 recursive relationships. I misspelled recursive. Good old Stack Overflow. It's always where you end up, right? Oh, that's a different syntax. As reply. Trying to create a recursive relationship in Rails so that the comments can have replies using the same model comment. So basically a comment has many comments as replies, and a comment can belong to only one comment. Well, that's not very useful. Come use my gem. Products can have other products. That looks basically like what I'm doing, doesn't it?
Since we're using double quotes, but that shouldn't matter, should it?
Nah, it shouldn't. One product, top branches, child products. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Well, somebody's describing what it is they want to do, and they're giving my answer that doesn't work as the solution. Guess what? It doesn't work. Interesting. All right. I'm going to look at one more. As. Well, there's that as modifier again. Interesting. Let's see. Rails has many as. Active record associations. Why associations? Yeah, let's find the as part. Yeah, searching for as on a page about associations. That's not going to be easy. Tell you what, I will see if I can't figure out what has gone wrong here with this, what it is that I've missed. And we'll go on with it next week. Not next week, next class. I promise I'm not giving up for a whole week. But I'll see if I can't figure this out. We'll talk about it on Wednesday. There's still got to be a way to make this work. It's just something in the way that Active Record is recognizing it has changed, and I've missed that change somewhere along the way. So, other than all of the questions that I obviously can't answer because I don't seem to know what I'm doing here in this particular part, were there any other questions I could answer for you? All right, let's go ahead and stop there for today then.